Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast. Your host, Thomas Keenan, coming at you today. Got my man, Patrick LeRouge, with me. And I finally got to connect with this dude a couple of weeks ago in person at an event. And him and I have been bouncing off each other a couple times in social media. We brushed shoulders at an event about a year ago and briefly had a small interaction. It was basically, hey, man, I know you. High five. Cool. Talk to you later. And we never talked. So, I think it was a month ago already at this point. We were in Boston together. Our good close friend, Chris Whitehead, has his iconic event. You showed up and you were there as someone who does a lot of events and helps and speaks other people, right? You showed up there to learn from those in the room. And I watched you a lot at that event, if you weren't aware, by the way.
I was not aware. So now I'm very curious. Tell me more.
I am an observer. I like to observe and consume before I speak or take action on things. It's just the way I've been since day one. So I like to kind of read the room, see who's actually doing the work, see who's not doing the work. And what I saw from you in the 2.5 or so days that we were together was that you were the one who was there taking the notes. You were the one who was there standing up and interacting. You were the one who was asking questions. And in my experience, those who pay good money to go to an event like that, who show up, put the ego aside, like regardless of what you've accomplished or achieved in your life is irrelevant. You come into the room with an openness and a willingness to learn from others who were there. And couple that with you actually taking notes and doing the work. And day one, when I spoke, I talked about core values. And up on the projector, I had my core values assessment. Hey, this is how you guys go ahead and do this. This is a streamlined documentation, blah, 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 blah. And that day at lunch, hey, Tom, do me a favor, take a look at this. Okay, cool. I like this, but here's a couple of things I suggest that you should probably change or edit. You said, all right, awesome. Thanks. There wasn't pushback. There wasn't like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You quietly went back into your own little hole. You did the work. And I believe it was the next day you came in and you said, here you go. They're done. And a couple of days later, it was finalized. And when I say finalized, I mean, you had artwork done.
Already on the board.
Right? So this is what I'm talking about. Like when I observe you from back in the room, like me hiding in my corner, watching out over everything, I'm looking at the little details because to me, details matter. And you showed up and did a lot of really cool stuff in that 2-day period. And to be quite honest with you, it tells me a lot about you in a good way.
I take that one, but I really do want to say thank you because one of the things that I really do understand is in my world, as I start to help a person optimize their performance and optimize who they are, and I'm going to skip over who I am for a hot second. I in the 20 years, I realized I'm awesome at the body work. I can read a person from a minute away and tell them exactly what's wrong. But when it comes down to the business side, which is everybody, personal side, it's awesome on some people. Then the business side, they struggle with. Doesn't mean that they're doing bad. It's just, it's not their sweet spot where things come easy. I can like do body work and get a person great seconds. It's just simple. It's second nature to me. But for the business side, I have to lean on your skills of how you learn. And I'm a visual learner as well as a kinetic learner. So if I'm not asking questions and doing something, look and playing around with it, I'm never going to truly take action on it. Yeah. And that's what I've learned on how I optimize my performance, how I do my own shit is because I understood that if I'm not writing something out, seeing something, like I have a Microsoft tablet that I can turn around, you can write on it. It's like the Remarkables that people are using, but it's a computer. So I write and I do things and I take things. And if I don't do that, it'll slip past my mind and it'll go into the universe of ether of you'll forget it in a matter of minutes.
Yeah. And at that point, then what the hell are you doing wasting your time at the event?
And most people don't realize everybody has their way of learning. You have to find out your way of learning so you can actually shift it. Either you're kinetic, auditory, visual. I'm a mixture of visual and kinetic in that way. So if I'm not doing something and talking with somebody, it doesn't stick with me. But the biggest one for me that I learned is it's not just that. It's I have to have a connection with the person talking as well as a vibe that I can bounce back and forth with. So if I have a connection with the person, I find out that person is not what they're saying. Like I'm a family oriented person. And if they're just like, oh, you have to go hard. It doesn't matter about anything. Just keep on going. You're going to make it. And some people say that. I instantly say, I like your thought process, but I can't play around with it because I'm family oriented and I gotta be with my kids. I can't just do that, mainly because I do everything off of generational learning. And if I start pulling away from my kids, what am I teaching my kids? That everything matters except for when you want something, and then nothing matters. And that's what happens a lot. And that's why we're getting a lot of people a lot of kids now are falling apart because of that. And we're just the next generation is becoming harder and harder to understand how to be happy and live a life in that way. So I really do appreciate the fact that you acknowledge that, and I want to take it in and say thank you, because I do love it when someone notices, like, I am putting in the work, because sometimes in our world we don't get that praise enough. I want to say thank you, and the fact that you are where you are is awesome as well, because you put in the work, and I want you on my podcast because we already talked a little bit about it. It's like, what beliefs did you have to go through to make it through the shit that you went through?
Yeah. That's been an evolutionary process, because it's had to change and adapt as I've grown and changed too.
So there's a saying that people say, it's like, oh, you have to be the person that you want to be. And people have this like tunnel vision where they only see black and white, where you start and where you end up. And most people are just speaking about where they end up. Like, I got the boats, I got the cars, I got this, or I have the great family, have the time to spend for myself. But I'm all about, so how'd you get there? Like, what you have to do? Like, who did you have to change to get to this person? Because everybody's like, oh, I want to be like him. I was like, you might not want to be like him, because he went through 2 divorces. He went through alcoholism. He went, like, you have no clue what that person went through. And that's what I'm more interested in. This person being this bright, shining star that they are. The light that's showing us how to do it. It's not about the end result. I see this a lot. And it bothers me a little bit, is everyone's trying to learn the fastest way to make the money, to do everything. And they're forgetting to get that skill set. They have to learn a whole bunch of other skill sets that this person already learned. And it didn't come quick. Like you said it right before. It's like, I've been on social media for 5 years and I've been doing legit intentionally. This thing doesn't come easy. Like, that's 100%. But in order to do that, you had to learn a whole bunch of skill sets. You had to be disciplined. And this is the hardest one that a lot of people don't realize. You have to trust yourself as well as trust in what you're doing. If you don't have those 2 things, you can't be consistent.
100%. It's funny, man. Let me go back here for a second. This happens all the time. You and I spoke for a good solid 5 or 6 minutes before we hit the record button. Okay. And every time that I do that, it's like, God damn it, there was a piece of that conversation that should have been on the show.
Okay. What was it?
Yeah, it's just, you and I had a very open, frank, direct conversation about, hey, you asked me, how do I get into this area? How do I change my marketing? How do I, basically get my messaging out to a different group of people? And I just said, hey, man, like, what you see from me today has been a combination of things. And the work started, like, I got really active on social media probably 5 years ago, but realistically, it probably started 7 years ago. There was 2 years of flubbing around and kind of, I don't know about this. And then it was, okay, let's go all in on this thing. But it's been like 5 solid years of me being incredibly intentional with what I'm doing on social media that has allowed me to have the impact there that I do now. And with that being said, there's lots of other people on the socials who impact a fuck of a lot more people than I ever do or ever will. And that's just part of it. Cool. I get it. Right. I'm not The Rock. Right. I'm not Grant Cardone, nor I don't want to be either of those guys. I still want to be me. But how do we take that message? How do we leverage it? How do we get in front of the right people? How do we influence and attract the right people who will then stick with us and interact with our content over time? Because ultimately, all that I'm trying to do here with my marketing is put out a message that resonates with people who align with me. And eventually, we're going to start breaking down the big 3 in sales, which you know what these are already. I'm just going to repeat them and remind you. You have to break down the know, like, and trust factor. So they start to get to know you with the marketing that you're putting out there. Then they decide, okay, I'm starting to get to know this guy. Do I like him? Right. And hey, some of the stuff I put out there, people are not going to fucking like. And I'm fine with that.
And they get pushed away. So
later, my ideal target or person I want to do life with. And then finally, the third piece of it is trust. So when you combine the know, the like, and then you add the trust, Those are the three pieces of the equation that then lead to a sale. So if you don't have know, like, and trust, you can't even offer your shit and close the deal. So
That's completely true, and I love it that you bring that up.
yeah,
What I like. All right, so let me take a big step back because
yeah,
no one knows who I am yet, right?
yeah. Let's go back there. Let's kick it.
Let's take a step back. So what I just chewed up on, I was just like, oh, I think I could talk about that really good. Oh, wait a minute, they don't know what I'm talking about. So let me see who I am. So one of the things that frustrates me the most in the world is exactly what you just said. And people try to get to know, like, and trust, but they forget one thing. If you don't know, like, and trust yourself, your energy is always going to be based off your mask that you show up. So if you do get a sale, it's going to be to somebody that doesn't really know you. And as soon as that mask comes off and you get comfortable, things start going awry. Or it's just hard to get the sale altogether because you're never truly who you are and you don't know who you are, so you can't. And that's why people have a hard time. So one of the things that frustrates me most, and the reason why I do the things I'm doing, is I like to connect a person's mind and body so they start to do more with less time, less effort, less foot. Like, it's just so much simpler when you understand who you are and your body is no longer putting on the proverbial e-brake.
Yep.
So many people have this lovely Ferrari, they decked it all out, they have all the systems, they have all the things. Ferrari's on point, but they got that e-brake rammed up. And because they have the drive, the passion, and everything, they start burning tires and they're just going, and the car is moving ever so slightly because it's so strong. Yeah. But they're burning out their car. So I see things like when I was talking with you, I was like, all right, you have this issue. We have to work on this. We have to get this dialed in. Oh, once you get that, your back won't start hurting. Like, everything will start working out. Like, when you start showing confidence, you peacock, right? People just open up their product. They walk into a room, but that's not their self, because as soon as I see them sit down, they go off, they sit down and they're like clunk. Like, everything just drops in that way because they're not able to have this posture be them.
Yeah.
So what I do is I get a person to understand who they are based on clearing out the belief system that's made them who they are through generational learning. But more importantly, getting them to do something as simple as a morning routine that activates their body, that turns on specific areas, that aligns your mind and your body. Yeah. And gets them to move forward. So things, you always are clear. You're always ready to go. You're always focused and have the energy that keeps on going.
Yeah.
Now everything just becomes simpler at that point.
Yeah. So let's backtrack here for a second. So I think it was either the first or the second day we were in Boston together. You came up to me and you're like, hey, what's wrong with you?
I didn't say it like that because that's just damn mean. But
hey, pretty much you did, but it was cool. That's my version of it because I'm the guy who's just really direct. But for those who don't know me and who haven't been with me in person, my body from the lower half down is ridiculously stiff. It has been for years, right? And you probably know more of the reasons behind it than I do. I have a couple of good ideas, right? But
start there, man. Start there. Let's have some fun. Spit it out, man.
Not taking care of myself for years being extremely overweight and not giving a shit, not moving, right? Also working in a career where you literally put your body into a pretzel in some really tight areas on a daily basis. Doing a lot of work from my knees. And no funny jokes there, folks.
I was slow to get that one. I was like, oh, let's be a little professional here. I was slow to that one, though.
Yeah. Also couple that with working. So not only in the cardio field did I do the work in the vehicles, which is taxing on the body, but I also did a lot of work on the retail floor as well. So standing for hours on end was a big deal, a big part of it. And especially as I got heavier and more out of shape, standing and holding your own damn body weight or your excess body weight puts ridiculous strain on your body. Injuries, work injuries, sports-related injuries as a kid, doing dumb shit as a 19, 20-year-old and crashing motorcycles multiple times. Like, all of this stuff kind of adds up and compounds. So by the time you're my age, 43, even though I've been on the path of taking care of myself physically and mentally and spiritually and all that stuff now for the past couple of years, it's still not perfect. Like, there's been so much damage that was done because I was ignoring it for so many years that it's taking me quite a while to go fix some of these issues. And I've done a lot of work there, right? I'm very happy with the progress that I have achieved so far because I know what had to go into it in order to make it a reality. But I'm also of the mindset, and this applies to everything, not just my personal health and fitness. Okay.
Mhm.
This applies to everything. No matter how fucking good and dialed in you think you are, there's still room for improvement.
That's 100% right.
Yeah. So you came over to me, you looked at me, and you started poking me, literally.
I don't. If you ever meet me, expect me to give you a hug and poke you moments later and
Yes.
say,
So
"Hey,
you
what's
asked me
this?"
some questions. Yeah, you asked me some legit questions. Hey, like, what's bothering you? And I was like, hey man, my hips are kind of bothering me. My hips are tight. My knees are tight. I walk kind of funny. My toes are all jacked up. Like I got toes on my feet that they don't all touch the floor. And you're like, dude, take your shoes off, bend over, touch your hip, twirl around 6 times. You poked me on my side like obliques. You had me activate my core. You poked me over there, and you're like, hey, this isn't activating enough. And this is like the way that you just did it, and you broke it down. And no exaggeration, it took you about, I don't know, 28 seconds in total. And you knew exactly what was wrong and what needs to get worked on and addressed and in what order. And that just tells me, going back to, kind of patting you on the back again here. And this is, I don't blow smoke up people's ass. I just don't do it. Like I speak whatever it is that I feel that comes out of my mouth. Sometimes it's great. And other times it's gotten me into trouble. But anyway, I say this because you looked at me in less than 30 seconds. You pointed out a couple of things and said, hey, I know exactly what's wrong with you. I know how to fix you. This is what we need to do. Right. That tells me, once again, that you're the expert in the field of what you do and what you've studied, and the amount of hours that you've put into your trade and your craft is well above and beyond that $10,000 minimum to become an expert. So now let's throw this back to you. My question is, what the fuck exactly do you do? Okay. And I'm being serious here. And what was it like? What did you have to go through in order to learn and get trained on exactly what it is that you do within the human body? Because I know you're talking mindset as well, but you're also talking the physical body, because you came over to me and like the conversations you and I were having were not from my mindset. It was, hey, the physical part of you is still broken in these areas, and I want to help you fix that. Right. So I need to know, for my own personal well-being and for the listeners here too, tell me the backstory. Like, how did you get into this? How did you get into body mechanics and learning about the human body? And what kind of training have you gone through to get to the expert level that you're at right now?
So it all goes back 23 years ago in that way. So the fun part of the whole story is it all comes back down to what you believe and who you are. And you said it before, as I grew, I need to change who I am.
Yeah.
And as I started to change, the only difference between me and everybody else is I didn't change verticals. I stayed in the health field on body care. And I told you the thing that drives me insane the most is when someone gets information from somebody else that doesn't empower them to learn about themselves. That's what drives me insane the most. So I create, to answer your first question, what do? I create custom plans that get the person to optimize their body with their mind so they can do more with less. And it has to do with how they're dealing with their body, because if their body is not dialed in, that e-brake is always going to be checked. That's number one. Number two, if they're not dialing in and understanding who they are, inner child work, understanding what their subconscious is doing, for instance, they're always going to self-sabotage as soon as they start going, right? And then if they don't have that consistency, they're going to tucker out or burn out really, really fast. Because once you line up those two, you have jet fuel and you start going.
Okay, here's my term.
Go ahead.
Efficiency of the body and mind.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's what you do.
Okay, I'll steal it. I have no problem with that. I'll steal that. Efficiency of the body and mind. That's what I do. That's easy.
Yeah.
So just take a step back and tell you how I got here. Is I started off because I was a kid that didn't want to take any shit from anyone. Right. And someone told me I couldn't do something. The dean of the university said, by the way, you're not going to be a good massage therapist because you dislocate carpals in your wrist. You won't last a minute, but because you seem to be a hard-headed and a go-after person, you seems like you're going to do it, we'll take your money. We have no problem with that. Looked at my mom, and my mom instantly knew what was happening, because you don't tell people like us that we can't do something. But she was right. It was a 12-month program. It took me 2 years to finish because I kept on blowing my carpals and I was in serious pain. But I finally graduated with a few little things that taught me to push forward. But then as I started to learn to rehab all myself, I started to find out that the body's a system. And you have to consistently work with the body in a way where it's right for that person. I found out what was right for me, and I kept on going and scratching the surfaces. And as I started to do that, bigger things started to happen. I'm not going to bore you with all the stories, but
Sure.
I went in and fixed all of this, and I was able to work. But I was doing things where I was using braces, I was using wraps, I was sleeping like this because my wrist was always hurting, shoulders always hurting, but I knew how to clean it up. So I'd get hurt, and I'd clean it up really, really fast. And I got really efficient at doing that. Something would hurt, clean it up. And I started making a business about getting people out of pain relatively fast.
Yeah.
Then I was like, I need this to stop. And I went to a seminar, a weekend seminar that taught me about energetics. And at that seminar is where I when I learned how to heal my eyes. And I rapidly healed my eyes, and I went from legally blind to being able to see.
Wow.
But I was also a stupid little child where I actually took advantage of the gift that I got to the point of it's ridiculously stupid. And we all do this. So before you laugh at me, we all do it until we learn that, oh shit, that was stupid. And it's going to sound stupid. I can see clear, but I still kept my glasses on, mainly because I was teased as a child when I lost my glasses, and that was a belief system. But I wore my glasses. And to attract more clients, I would go to a seminar, I would go to a shop, and I would work on people. I was like, listen, you have to change your belief because you can heal anything. And I honestly believed it because moments later, I was like, listen, I was legally blind, and now I can pick up my glasses, I can readjust my vision, and I can see anything. Pick anything out there, and I'll be able to see it. And I started getting people to realize that you can change everything. And people can say, oh, this cut doesn't hurt you anymore. You can fake it. Your eyes, you can't, because it's something you can't touch. And as soon as a person makes it past a cut, they freak out because they can't see what's happening. So they start poking at it and messing with it, and it just makes it worse. So the fact that I was able to heal my eyes and show people I can fluctuate it, my business started to blow up. 6 months later, because I kept on taking advantage of it and never just taking off my glasses and being who I am, all my vision left. I went back to legally blind almost as fast as it came.
Wow.
And I went from, do you wear glasses at all?
I used to.
Ooh, LASIK, or did you do it naturally?
LASIK.
Oh, all right. But here nor there, we're not going to knock you on that. The easy way out. But anywho, I went from 475, where 6 on a diopters go by 25 increments. I was at 475, so which means I took off my glasses and things would just disappear, right? So now I went from 475 back to, I was like under the 1, like it was just easy. And then I went all the way back up to 475.
Wow.
And then I had to do the hard work of finding out why my body was blinding me again. What didn't I want to see? And then I learned my mom was mugged. That's why we had to leave Brooklyn. Mugged twice. That's why we left Brooklyn. And at 28, I had to deal with those feelings. And as I started dealing with those feelings, 2 things happened. And this is what I want everyone to hear. As you start dialing in your body, that's when you change. I started to see better because I started to see the world as it was. I started to see the world as it was. I was getting all physical changes. I was feeling things, as well as I saw my business differently. I saw what I was capable of differently. I saw that I could be a better father rather than the thing that I was trying to run away from, which my father was a truck driver and he just was never home. So I was like, I'm always going to be here, but I didn't take the responsibility of running a business like a business should be ran. And it's to take care of the family. And that's all my father was doing. It's just his tool was truck driving. He drove from New York down to Florida, so we barely saw him. Right. After that, I was just like, all right, now I have this ability. I love myself and I'm working myself down. I have to understand the systems of the body, which then I started learning about the electrical system. I started learning about the organ system, and I developed this. I went through a treatment where I started developing how to balance out the anterior chain versus posterior chain, which changes the brain yet again. And once you start changing the brain, people start to feel better, see better, think better. And now I have the body dialed in with the mind. But then it was, why do people keep on messing up? And now we're 12 years in now. Why do people keep on messing up? And I start to understand psychology. And I start to understand that. And then I was like, oh, wait, so where does a person get it from? And then I started going into generational learning. And I learned a process. My bigger process that I now do is clearing up all the generational learning that keeps you self-sabotaging.
Generational learning is a real thing.
It
I mean,
is.
like, dude, I've experienced it, and the more that I've learned and gone outside of the family ecosystem and unit that was, once that safe haven in this area that we were born and raised, and I went out and started to educate myself and learn from other people's and hear different perspectives. That was when some of the clarity came in, like, oh shit, that thing that your mom or your dad or your aunt or your uncle told you 20 years ago was just some generational bullshit that was passed on to them, and they just bought into it and never even said, "Oh, I don't know about that."
That is so like so many. So I'm gonna geek out on you. So bear with me, everybody, for a half a second. So when you're a child, from the ages of 0 and 7, everybody knows this. Like you don't have rational learning. Rational learning starts around 7 and it starts to grow up. But now think rational learning at 7 is very rudimentary. Think Commodore 64.
Mm-hmm.
You have mad coding and you have to figure that shit out, and you don't figure it out because they have this easy, picture book. You have to figure that shit out. Like,
Hold on, bro. Hold on. You mentioned Commodore 64, and I immediately start thinking about Oregon Trail.
So, but you know it, right? You know it's like the stick, and it's like dee, dee, dee. Like it's so rudimentary. And when you have so many bad, the dial-up, you see the blinking light. It's just things don't work cleanly in that way. But that's how your brain starts learning that from 7 on. That's where people start to understand. But what happens between the ages of 0 and 7? That's the shit that you have to really look at. And most people, I would say 90% of the people don't remember between 0 and 7. The reason why is because they're starting to learn how to learn to remember things. So it's very, very hard to get back there in that way. But what happens during that time is the environment gets imprinted on you. And no matter if your parents were fighting, I'm not talking about brawl out fighting and then kissing later, that was normal. That was right. It doesn't matter if your parents were drinking heavily, smoking heavily, ignoring you to the teeth, making you cry, screaming. All those negative things I just did on purpose was to show you that was normal. So now, as an adult, you rationalize that's not normal, but what was imprinted on you is normal. So that's where that chaos happens inside your head. It's like, I don't know why I have this urge to do this, or I have this knee-jerk reaction and then feel guilty afterwards. You have to eliminate that belief structure from the root, which is way back in the day.
Yeah.
Right. And I use something called EMDR. If you tapping, there's all sorts of different ways that you can now access that subconscious state. Hypnosis is a good one that you can do it. But unless you get there, you're always going to be overriding a habit loop on top of a habit loop that's based on a neural link. You have to now change that, which some people talk about mind mapping and changing your mind map in that way. That also works very, very well. But unless you get access to that, you're only putting habits on top of habits, and they will break because it's based off of willpower. Get you tired, get you upset, get you anything, your inner child comes to the surface, and that motherfucker's driving the car. I just cursed, my bad.
Oh, go ahead. It's good.
That kid is driving that car into guardrails because it thinks it's Commodore 64. I can do whatever I want. And it starts wreaking havoc on everything that you work so hard for. Yeah. Right. And it makes it worse is it'll do it even worse for the unconditional love zone. Yeah. And that's why so many spouses, like as soon as they get home, they let it out, let it rip on their spouse because it's unconditional love, perceived unconditional love until it's not. That's why sometimes you get real hard on your kids. You're like, why was I doing that? It's because they jacked up your nervous system. Your kid took control. It's like, oh, this is a safe place. I'm going to scream at something. I'm going to like things get horrible. And that's why things get this divide. And that's how I work. I clear up that.
Yeah, got it. So I think it's brilliant, man. So you're talking about, literally cleaning up the mindset. And when you clean up the mindset, it then gives the body the ability to heal itself. And obviously there's some stuff that you're doing there mechanic wise or stuff that you have your clients do to get better in certain areas. But it's not one or the other. This is a combination of the two.
It needs to be it needs to be in harmony with where you're at stage 2. So this is, I can actually look at a person and know what's happening in their life, and they won't even notice what's happening. For instance, I know you work with a lot of guys, you work with a lot of, heavy hitters, right? So 2 things are going to always show, not always, and I want to be careful with what I'm about to say.
Sure.
I see this so often that I can say it as a generality. When you start getting higher up, your hips and your low back start to get tighter because your foundation, which is your hips. If someone's showing me hip issues, I
Yeah.
see a foundation issue on their personal side as well as business side. So
Mm.
if you think about as you were doing the pretzel and you were getting heavier and things like
Sure.
that, all this shit was falling apart. But as soon as you start to get grounded with who you are, all your bodies start to change.
Mm.
And that's because as you start to get your feet and your hips dialed in, they became stronger. Your foundation became stronger, which then made you stronger.
Yeah.
So I can now look at a person. I want a person to understand that your body is telling you 100% of the time what is actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't believe me, remember all those times you walked into a room, your hair stood up, and somebody was looking at you. That lovely adage that's actually true. That's just energetic transfer.
Yep.
That you felt well before your mind caught on.
Yeah.
So yes, the mind controls the body, but the body says way too much for you to not listen to it.
Yeah, for sure.
So many people don't listen to it.
So let's dive in there a bit, okay? Because people don't know this about me, but you want to get weird and woo-woo, I'm all for it.
Oh, let's do this, man.
What are some energetic signals that most people are either not in enough alignment or attuned with themselves to even realize that it's a signal? And what are some of the signals that those who do have the ability to receive them usually ignoring, like, it's not a big deal, I'll just keep moving forward?
All right, so the first answer to that is there's so many. There's so many I couldn't even start. Like, oh, you could do this, you could do this. But it's a matter of this. If you're listening to this right now, you need to understand, are you in your body or not? Which means you can be stuck into your head and ignoring everything in your body, and that would be 85% and plus of most people that I talk to at first.
Yeah.
And the easiest way you could do that is just feel your heart. Go pledge allegiance and feel your heart. If it takes you more than 2 seconds to feel your heartbeat, your nervous system is jacked up and you're not in your body. Thomas, you lose.
No, I felt it already.
So that's the name of the game. Like, you have to now be in your body. Once you're there, then you can start feeling things. Yep. And it's easy as any emotion is energy in motion. It's anything that you feel in that way. So everybody's body is different. If you feel one way, like if you felt your heart, feel your heart. Everybody feel your heart. I know I can't see you, but I know this works so well. And I want you to now feel the cadence of your heartbeat. And you have it. It has a texture to it. It has a rhythm to it. And it just runs and runs and runs, right? So now I got you, Thomas, right? As we got you. And then I get you to think about, what's the most dangerous place that you've ever drove on? For me, it's Route 22, where people are crossing the street like Frogger, and you have to watch out for other cars.
You're talking Jersey, Route 22 in Jersey. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Bananas. But keep on feeling your heart for a second.
Yeah.
Keep on feeling your heart. So as soon as you start to think about that, your nervous system starts to raise, which means your heart starts to raise, which means if you can feel that change, and sometimes it's magically, like, massively huge of a big change. Once that happens, you now have your body's now telling you something. I'm now jumping up in fight or flight, which means you are no longer in your frontal lobe, you're in a protective zone, which sometimes is very, very important.
Yeah.
Right. But to get you to understand what are some woo-woo things that you do, fact number one, what is your body telling you? Yeah. So if you start to feel cold, right, all of a sudden you feel cold, it's not a ghost, it's all your blood leaving your extremities to go back into your inside of your body.
Right, to protect you.
Something is now changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
You feel hot, your eyes dilate, you start to open up. It means you're starting to feel safe and more vulnerable. But just now, you just leaned in here, which means your temperature also raised, because now you're with me in that way. All those things are your signs, and you want to start doing this now. If you want to talk about sales in that way, it all plays a role in sales.
Sure it does.
Right? If you see a person's eyes dilate, for instance, or they start to squint, no, their body's telling you, I don't really understand or like you right now. Back off.
Yeah, it's all body language.
So body language, right?
Yeah.
So you gotta need to understand that. So if a person, it's not even like if I do this, right? It's not that much. But if you do this and you see a hand start to grab, that's when they're protected. So I protect myself sometimes by me holding here and grabbing my hands and bringing it back. Once I notice that, I know my body no longer feels safe in the interaction that I'm in.
Sure.
So that's on the body language side. So now, once you get into the body language side, then we can get into the woo-woo side. So I want to take it really, really like straight. Like, I know you can't feel what I feel. So what can you feel? You can base it off of a straight line of sight. What is your body telling you? Is your shoulders rolling forward? If your shoulders rolling forward, do you feel the tightness that's happening in your chest? Once you feel the tightness in your chest, do you feel the energy that's flowing through you? And does it feel like there's a hole there or there's a blockage there? Either or, I can tell you right now, your body's protecting something and you need to get it off your chest.
Literally.
But that's the game that you want to play, especially if you're starting to really move up. Now, let's bring it back into your world for a second. Sure. If you're starting to move up and you're starting to progress in life, what you're not going to realize is if your body's not in line and running with you in a safe discomfort zone, it's instantly going to put the brakes on. So I worked with triathletes for a very long time. And that's where I did my, when I was doing my parlor trick, I was working with triathletes, showing them that they can do anything. I was getting them to jump leaps and bounds, their PRs. Their personal records were being smashed because I taught them one thing. Zen running was the big thing that was going into the world then. And people were trying to get out of heel striking. And what I had to teach them was mentally, if you're walking now, like if you just decide to take a step and start walking and find your cadence, or look at any of your old shoes, if your heel is worn down, you are heel striking. What that shows me is that you're a forward thinker, and all you're doing is leaning forward, thinking about what's happening in your body, trying to keep up with you. Which then, because you take a step forward, you land on your heel, which acts as your brake. So it actually stops you. And that's why a lot of runners have back pains, because they also heel strike. And because when they hit the ground, the kinetic energy goes right up to their back, and it wears down their back enough to eventually grow. So if you're starting to look at what your body is doing and you're starting to progress up in life, just watch the way that you walk. If you're already a heel striker and you start to slow down, like if you're standing now and just close your eyes and think Toucan Sam and lean forward, your body's naturally going to land in the middle part of your foot, which means you are stable, which means you can able to pivot, you're nimble, because all of your weight load is right centered. That's the way you want to be with everything. That's for the running, but also for business and for personal life. You want to be centered. You want to be quiet in that way. And that's a perfect analogy that I like to use for people to understand. If you don't focus on your body's telling you all sorts of different things. You just now need to learn. And once you dial that in, you'll be able to step it up way faster and not burn out afterwards. Because burnout is a big thing where people just keep on blowing past their limits. And because they're able and they have willpower, they just keep on going with it. And then eventually the burnout is way worse than taking the hour break that they would need a day.
Ask me how I know.
Hey, Thomas, how do you know, buddy?
So I've experienced it several times over the course of a career, right? Some small business ventures have been successful, some have not, and some have been in between. Some have been great learning lessons while also being extremely high stress. So typically what happens with me is just a hard charger, like going hard and waking up and doing a thing and working. Like it's not even like a challenge. It seems to be the norm. Right. And we go ahead, we push, we get a little outside pressure on us. Oh shit, we got to go and do more. Right. We continue to push harder and harder and harder. And what winds up happening is my body usually tries to tell me, hey man, hey Bob, like shoulder tap you. Like, hey man, hey dude, we got to take a break here. And the mind goes, hey, fuck off. We don't have time for that because we got shit to do. We got deadlines. We got people who are waiting on us. And then the body comes and shoulder taps you the second time. It's a little bit harder this time. And then you say the same thing. Hey, fuck off, body. We're good. We got this. Just keep moving forward. We're almost there. We're almost there. We're almost there. And then finally, the body comes over you and kicks you dead in the ass and knocks you down. And you're in bed for a couple of days. And it could be a head cold. It could be the flu. And in my case, I've had all those happen. In my case, when the stress level gets ridiculous, and also lower back issues is a real big one that's happened in the past. Not so much now since I've lost a bunch of weight. But the one that has done the most damage for me, it's a very slow buildup to it. But my stress levels have increased. It's probably happened to me 4 times at this point in my life. My stress levels have increased so much that I've put my body into acute diverticulitis.
Oh, all right. So I just, so many things just popped up just there, but go ahead.
Yep. I'm telling you right now, like that shit is no joke, and don't play with it. Right? Like if your guts, and I don't mean your stomach, and I don't mean you're pooping nonstop all day long, just being transparent here, but if your guts feel like you swallowed a bunch of razor blades or someone's in there poking you with a hot knife all day long, you better go see somebody and have them take a look at it. But you also better go and reevaluate what the hell's going on in your life, both personally and professionally.
That's more on the personal side.
Hmm.
Because anything that involves like the intestines and organ stuff on the digestive system is you not processing, digesting the things that's right in front of you. So
all right, hold off here a second. Let me tie it up for you. The last 2 times that it happened for me, actually last 3 times, my son Thomas went in for emergency surgery, and when he was 6 months old, and a couple of months later after that, boom, it popped up. Right. The second time it happened for me, the second and third time were very close to each other. And it's funny, it was last year when I met you. My wife, actually May 2nd is the 1-year anniversary for my wife going in for a double mastectomy with her breast cancer. Okay. So this is May 2nd. I met you in person last year, the first week of June. Okay. So 3 or 4 days prior to that event that I met you at, I laid up in bed for about 3 days because it came back. And the personal shit the month before and all the lead up to that brought it to light. And then about a month later, it happened again. And there was a lot of other shit going on. My wife was still doing her thing. She was going through chemo at that point. I was literally cutting her hair off, and I had a massive career change all at the same time. So you add all of those things together and like, oh, no shit, your guts were on fire.
Shit in flames. But you're 100% right. Stress is going to do all sorts of different things. But if you're listening to this, you have to figure out what your process is. Like, what is your body going to be telling you and how your body's going to tell you, and stop waiting for the big things to happen and start learning how to understand what your body's saying. Yeah. Like, literally, that's what I do. I sit down and I talk with you. I'm like, oh, what's going on? How's it feeling? What's going on with this? And then you're like, oh yeah, that happens all the time. I was like, why is that not an issue? Why is that not a red flag? Because it doesn't bother me enough. It's like, do you really want it to? Yeah. Right? Like, you don't want that. So start learning your specific way of your body's telling you, which also goes back to look at how your parents dealt with their stress. Look at how they dealt with their money. Look at how they dealt with showing you emotions. And this is the biggest one, receiving emotions. And if you're a male and you're over 35, a lot of it was, we don't show emotions. It shows weakness. So what happens is you start to fake it. I love you. And they're like, I love you too. Like, okay. And you like shrug it away. Like, you have to learn. And this is going to be one of the best things that you can do for yourself. If you're listening to this, learn how to pause and say, thank you. And I love that you said that. Thank you. I love that you said that about me, and say that out loud. And you're going to feel awkward. I still feel awkward now and then because I feel it coming in, but now it's getting so much easier for me to actually receive it. And once you do that, you'll start seeing your love tank start to fill up more and more and more, which then allows you to deal with your stress way better.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Dude, this has been awesome. And I know you and I can go in here and do this for another 3 days and still keep
getting the
content out. Yeah.
We're going to do it on mine soon, man. You're going to come on mine.
I'm excited for it, for real. Hey, let's wrap this up. We're here at the top of the hour, and I got another call, and I'm sure you do as well. But give us the information, bro. Where can we connect with you? Where can we get more information from you and learning about how you could help us connect and make our mind and body more efficient?
All right. So the simplest way is go to patricklerouge.com. There's going to be a lovely little button down below, little bubble. It's actually me. I still talk to all my people, all the people that's coming in, because everyone is customized. So you hit that button and say, what's your morning routine? And I'm going to send you a really simple morning routine that you can do it, as well as we're going to have a conversation. It's very, very simple in that way. It's very streamlined, as well as you can find me on all the social media platforms under Patrick LeRouge. Yep. I'm more on Instagram and Facebook than anything else, but you can find me anywhere. But the easiest way is patricklerouge.com, and I'm giving away a free morning routine, or you can just buy my book on Amazon, Simple Path to Getting Everything Done with Energy to Spare. That's all the easy ways that you can get a lot of this stuff, where it's not as hard as you think it needs to be to optimize your mind and body.
Man, it's been awesome. I mean, just the conversation that you and I had here, you brought some stuff to light for me. And I know for a fact that those who are going to come and listen to this episode are going to get some real value from it. And I just want to say thank you. Like, truly thank you for coming in and sharing that.
Well, I appreciate it. Like, again, I love you because you do what you do and you help me understand a lot of things that's going on inside of me. So value shares with value. That's how we all raise up, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
it's all about love, right? I can't wait to have you on my podcast talking about beliefs. And if you ever want to listen to a different podcast, Freedom Mastery Experience, Belief Breakthrough, that's my podcast. And that's another way you can find out about me.
Cool, man. I appreciate you. Thanks for coming in today.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you for tuning in to the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast. Make sure you head over to stepitupentrepreneur.com and make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast.